Hey everyone, welcome to Intro to DJing, and in this video what I want to do is talk about saved loops. Now what saved loops are basically hot cues, but for loops, which means you can have loops that are saved in your song that you want to recall at a certain point. Now the way that this works is when you drag a song on the deck and you set a loop, you can basically press the pad, and rather than saving a hot cue, it'll actually save the loop, including the loop size and the cue location. So it's kind of like a two-in-one thing. It's a hot cue plus a loop length. So it sets the cue, it jumps to the cue and it starts the loop. Now in Virtual DJ, if you're here on the Essentials page, you'll need to right-click on one of these pads and click on Saved Loops for it to show up. In Pro mode, it'll usually show up there on the pads as well. You can click on one of these and see what it is, but when we're here on the Essentials page, you only get these 4 options for your pads, so it'll be there, but most controllers will also have a Save Loop section. What makes this even more confusing is some DJ applications will join together their hot cues and loops. So if you have a loop that's active, when you press the hot cue button, it'll actually save a loop and it'll be a different color. So Traktor is like this. Hot cues are blue and loops are green, and they're mixed in your 8 pads. Whereas here in Virtual DJ, I think Serato's like this too, your cues and save loops are in separate pages, so you can get 8 of each. So to set one, basically you find the point that you want to set the loop, such as this. You start the auto loop, or you can use the in and out buttons to set the loops. The way in and out works is as the track is playing, press in, and then you press out and it'll set a loop there. This is often called auto loop, where you basically click it and it'll be a loop for that amount of time. Or you also have loop punch in and punch out. So you press the in, it sets a start point, and then you press out, sets the end point and jumps back to the beginning, and it'll just loop that particular section of the track. So when you have a loop set, you basically click here and it'll activate your saved loop. So how does it work? Well, if you're playing your track and you click on this, what'll happen is it'll actually activate the loop. Which is pretty nice. Now in Virtual DJ, there are 2 ways this works. If you're after the loop, pressing the saved loop will actually jump to the loop and set it. But if you're before the loop, such as over here, pressing it will actually activate the loop, but it won't jump to it. This is called a loop catch, which means that basically what it'll do is it'll activate the loop, it'll turn the loop on, but it won't jump to where the loop start point is. So basically it'll turn the loop on, and then when the track gets to it, it'll set a loop. Now this can be really useful if you're trying to do a specific transition on a word. You can activate the loop on that word without needing, and you can do this ahead of time without needing to worry about pressing it at the right moment. So it can be really nice to have it work in this particular way. Now, let's say you are before this loop, like say you set a loop on the outro or an instrumental section and you do want to jump to it. Well, the way you do this here in Virtual DJ is by right-clicking on the saved loop control. Now, depending on your controller, there might be different ways you can do this. In Traktor, it's a little bit different. Pressing the loop will always jump to the start point of the loop no matter what, but there is a way you can activate a loop ahead of time by basically turning the loop on, and it'll jump to the next loop. So look at your controller and look at your DJ application for more information on that. Once again, here in Virtual DJ, the way it works is if you're before the loop, pressing it will activate the loop, but it won't jump to the start point, whereas if you're after the loop, pressing that saved loop will jump to the start point of the loop. So kind of interesting, kind of technical, but it's important to know the difference. But I do think that this way of doing it in Virtual DJ, even though it's kind of complicated at first, is probably the most useful way and the way you'd want to do it most of the time, because most of the time you're coming up to the loop, you don't want to just jump to it immediately. And of course you do have that option to jump to it if you need to. So hopefully this explained how saved loops work. What these are really useful for are 2 particular things. The first is if you have a song that has a certain instrumental section that you want to be able to jump to, and you basically want to be able to mix in and out of the song very quickly, you can always jump to that instrumental section and then mix in your next track without having to worry about layering vocals on top of vocals. So that's a really useful thing you can use your saved loops for. And then the other thing are really tricky things like word plays, which I'll show you in perhaps another video when I'm talking more about transitions, where you can use your saved loops to catch a certain word, vocal, or instrument, and then you can go ahead and loop that and have fun, going in between from one track to another, using that word as a transition point from one to the next. So hope you found this video helpful, and in the next video, I'll talk about the sampler. So thanks for watching, and hope you learned something.